Sovereignty. Hey, this is something that is just not talked about in relation to the law of attraction or, life on the planet Earth. And it's so important. So, what is sovereignty? So, everyone is talking about, do this and do that and help other people and do the right thing and do all this. The thing is, we are built to take care of ourselves first. I mean, there's a certain amount of, and I'm going to call it selfishness, involved with living. When it comes right down to it, each one of us are going to do the thing that benefits us, that makes us feel the best. It makes things improve in our lives. When you get right down to the very bottom line, that is what is going to happen. And so this is why isms don't typically work, because they're not thinking so much about the sovereignty of the individual. It's all about the individual, and the individual has to be free to be creative. That's the whole point of being here, is the freedom to create and the freedom of individuality in order to create. Now, you can't go out and start trying to help other people with all their problems and stuff, because you're just going to get caught up in all their problems and your creativity is going to be diminished considerably. So the sovereignty of the individual is way more than what I just said. So the sovereignty is that each one of us is built on the image of the Creator. You've heard that before, but what does that mean? That means we have been given all of the power to create, just like the Creator would create. Now that is mind-boggling. Oh my gosh. You mean what? It means that we have the ability and are likely creating in the Creator's image, right now. When that means creating universes, creating planets, creating life, anything and everything you can imagine, because that's what we're doing it with. We're doing it with our imagination. So we're creating now. Vibrationally, it's going out there. So that's what we're doing. Now, individually, we're extremely powerful, way more powerful than you can imagine, than we can imagine, than I can imagine, that we could know. We're so powerful that other people who understand this want us to believe that we're not very powerful. And so, there's a lot of things that go on that suggest that we're powerless. And one of those things is probably media programming. So, that media that comes in, the television shows that show you that you need to be subservient, you need to have a job, you need to do this, you need to, toe the line, you need to work hard, you need to do all these things, you need to follow the rules. Well, otherwise you'll get slapped by the man. and that's just programming. They don't call it TV programs for nothing. They're there to program you. So you want to kind of either cut back on your programming or just, be very aware of what's going on. Like if you see the man telling you, well, you can't have a day off because you got to work, well, that's programming. So you don't want to step back away from that just a little bit and say, well, listen, I'm powerful. I'm creating worlds. I don't need this job anyway, this limiting job. But I digress just a little bit. I want to get to the point across of sovereignty. You literally live on your own planet. So this sovereignty thing is so important, because with your thoughts, you are imagining and creating and lining up with creation on your own terms. So you're living on your own planet, your own vibrational earth. And say your mom and your dad and your brother, your sister, your friends, your coworkers, guess what? They live on their own vibrational planet as well. So it appears that we're having a shared experience, and we are to a certain extent, but that extent is to the extent that you, period, that you allow that to be included in your vibrational planet, and you do that by agreement. And that agreement is you say yes, or you disagree and you say no. And you do that vibrationally. How do you do that? You pay attention to it. That's it. It's an inclusive universe. So if you say no, I don't want that, and you're paying attention to it, then you're including it in your universe. If you say yes to it and you're paying attention to it, then you're saying yes to it and including it into your universe. If you just don't pay any attention to it, it's not included. That is the way you say no to something. You don't say no, you try to push it away, because you're just adding energy to it. You're putting your attention on it. You're the energy source. You're the energy for your own planet, your own existence, your own life. Take control. Understand how the thing works, how the mechanisms work. If you don't like it, don't pay attention to it. Here's an example. It's the best example that I can think of. Everybody, I think, can relate to it. The war on drugs. How's that working out? We've been waging war on drugs now for quite some time. Do we have less drugs or more drugs? I'm talking about illegal drugs, that are coming across our border or that are being taken by teenagers, children, adults. Do we have more or less? It seems to me like there are more. Now, I don't really pay much attention to it, so I'm just kind of watching from over here. I don't want it included in my world at all, but it's a good example. So the waging of the war does nothing but pay attention to it and adds more energy to it. Perhaps some people who came up with this idea, maybe they knew that. Maybe they're in the drug business. I don't know. I don't really care, because I'm not going to pay much attention to it. But if you're there, if you're in it, there's just no way to fight against it enough to the point where they're going to disappear, because they never will. Now, the only way to get rid of them is to pay no attention. And I'm talking about in the sovereignty of your own world. In the sovereignty of your own world, you can either include it or not include it into your life experience. So if you don't want it, pay no attention to it, and it will diminish. It's kind of like if you use it, you're going to get more. If you don't pay any attention to it, you're going to get less. So if you don't add energy to it, you're going to get less. If you add energy to it, you're going to get more. There's no depth to what you can experience by paying attention to it. There's no depth. There's no deeper way you can go. I mean, you can't get to the bottom of anything. There's nothing that's finite. There you go. So please keep all this in mind. You're a sovereign individual. That's the definition of a sovereign individual. And I really hope this has helped to shed some light on the experience that you have here on the planet Earth.